Hello everyone, welcome to the NUFC360 podcast. I'm your host Stephen. With me today is a very special guest. Everyone watching will know him as the voice of football in the Northeast for Sky Sports, known for endless positivity, breaking transfer news and being accused of favouritism by Sunderland fans. It's Keith Downie. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thanks
How you
very
doing?
much. Yeah, thank you. I thought it was interesting there you said the voice of Northeast football. You would normally say the voice of Newcastle, but obviously things have changed this season with Sunderland being back up. But we won't get.
We want some positivity to start with before we delve into the misery. But yeah, welcome to the show. I mean, there's a not. I wish there was a lot of good things to talk about, but I mean, we'll dive right into the sort of pressing topics. We've had what can only really be described as if I say it generously, an interesting summer. Obviously, the big news is about Alexander Isak and him wanting to leave, or telling the club that he wanted to leave reportedly based on promises that were not kept or aren't being kept at the moment. What's your feeling, your reaction to the whole situation, and then where do you think it's going to lead at the moment?
Yeah, well, you say interesting. I say show. It's not been good, has it? It's not what the fans wanted. It's not what Eddie Howe wanted. It's not what anyone. This was the window where Newcastle were supposed to add new players, strengthen, and you'll go into a Champions League season in a much stronger position. But as we sit here right now, with 4 weeks to go, the transfer window, you're actually down on players. Yes, you've added Anthony Elanga, but you've lost in the shape of Wilson and Longstaff, a couple of players, and the squad's actually looking thinner. Can you believe? In terms of the Isak situation, look, it's not a simple answer. This is something that's been brewing for a while now. Isak hasn't been happy, but he's dug in last season. He's delivered the goods. He's scored all sorts of goals. He's helped Newcastle win the trophy with a goal against, ironically, Liverpool in the final. And I think he's felt now this summer things were going to move. Either A, he was going to get a new contract on a lot more money, or B, he was going to get the opportunity to leave. And he obviously feels that he's worth more than the £150,000 a week that he's on, which is incredible to actually hear those words come out of my mouth. I don't know how anyone could be unhappy earning £150,000 a week, being the number 9 for Newcastle United.
Right.
But sadly, that is modern football.
I suppose when twice that amount is on the table somewhere else.
I know. It's hard. I mean, if someone offered you double the money for what you're doing, if someone offered me double the money...
you take it?
Yeah, your head, at the very least, your head gets turned, which is what's happened, right?
I mean, a big part of the Isak story, I mean, that we've heard about is to do with Paul Mitchell. When he came in, reportedly, he shelved contract talks with him, suggesting that Isak was paid well enough for what he is at the moment. And I think the understanding was that outside of Mitchell's time with us, that the club wanted to sign a new deal. Where is the club at the moment? Are they actively trying to get him to sign a new contract?
No, there's no talks underway at the moment. I think probably Isak doesn't want to. I think it's almost for him as that ship sailed.
Yeah,
you know, he's got 3 years left in his deal, which is a lot of time. Newcastle still hold the strength there. I think the reason he doesn't want to sit down and talk about a new deal just now is because the transfer window is still open, and Liverpool could come in and formalise their offer. Now, at the moment, it's just been an informal approach. Liverpool need to show the colour of their money for this to happen. What you don't want is this dragging on right until the end of the window. You don't have enough time to try and get in a replacement. I think the longer this goes on, without Liverpool coming in and putting in a formal bid, the harder it's going to be for Isak to leave.
Yeah.
Which then in turn brings its own problems, because then you're starting the season with a player who clearly is unhappy, clearly has had his head turned, clearly has been affected by everything that's going on, and Eddie Howe's going to have to do the mother of all man management jobs to get him into the right frame of mind for the season ahead. Now, I think he will get his head down and knuckle down if he remains, and I think that's because he has to. He's one of the best strikers in Europe. It's a Champions League season. Yeah. It doesn't look good on him if he down tools. It really doesn't look good, and that doesn't look good for potential suitors as well, clubs who come in, and it doesn't look good on a player's personality. So I think he will have to knuckle down and get on with it. Maybe Newcastle will have to come up with some kind of agreement where he gets a kind of pay rise until next summer, with maybe either a gentleman's agreement, he gets to leave next summer, or maybe some kind of release clause, a reduced release clause, that if a team comes in for him and offers 100 million or 110 million, he can go. I feel they're going to have to meet in the middle somewhere. With this.
I think that's something that I think there's a general sentiment from a large part of the fan base online, at least, that if he had to sell him, the preference I think would be you keep him for a year, when I think the expectation is that Barcelona, Real Madrid will probably be looking for attackers next summer. And that you definitely do everything you can to keep him away from other Premier League sides.
I mean, I wrongly thought that he would do another year. For anyone who was willing to listen, I said he'll do another year and then he'll go next year with 2 years to go. I knew he was frustrated. I probably didn't realise that it was going to kick off quite as publicly as what it did. You guys, I totally understand. You could almost accept him going to a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich. And I've heard a lot of fans over the last couple of weeks saying, do you know what? Just let him go to Saudi. You'd almost accept if he went to Saudi, because he's then not going to be scoring against you. St. James's Park,
just not the Premier League.
Just not the Premier League, just not Liverpool. And I think the way the Liverpool fans have probably been about this, like almost kind of laughing a little bit, it kind of adds to the frustration and the anger amongst you guys. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen. I mean, some Newcastle fans online have gotten a bit of stick for there was the banner that was placed outside the training ground calling Isak a pure rat, I believe the words were. I mean, speaking of frustrations,
just to interrupt you, I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't.
It's just throwing fire onto the flames. I wasn't even sure if it was real or not. I wasn't sure if that was maybe AI or whatever. But look, you shouldn't be doing that, because this is a player who isn't sold yet, and he might still be wearing the black and white in that first game of the season. So, I just think that's making this, Eddie Howe will be trying to manage the situation as best he can. Look, partly he'll be really frustrated that he's not able to sit down one-to-one with Alexander and talk to him. He's in South Korea. Isak, as we know, in San Sebastian training on his own. He'll be frustrated he's not able to do that. I feel next week, once Newcastle return on Monday, and he returns, I would suggest on Monday as well, there'll be a chance for them to sit down and talk it through and try to either come to some resolution or decide, right, okay, you're going to go. But then it's only going to go if one, Liverpool put the offer in, and two, it's the offer that matches Newcastle. So, look, the longer this goes on, the more I feel that you might just have to knuckle down and get on with it.
Yeah, it's not like we haven't seen other clubs hold on to strikers for an extra year or two before. I mean, Spurs held on to Kane against his wishes for 2 years. Liverpool held on to Suarez for a year. And like you mentioned before, 3 years after this deal, Newcastle still do hold the cards generally in terms of the making demands. I mean, do you think? Obviously, we've seen the reports that Liverpool are only going to put in an offer if they feel that Newcastle are willing sellers. Do you think that there is a number at which Liverpool could go in that the club would say, okay, let's consider this? Would it have to be the 150, or would they come down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the word is 150 million Newcastle are looking for. I think if Liverpool were to come in with a realistic bid of, say, 130, 135, I think Newcastle have to listen to it, given the fact, and I think they will listen to it, given the fact that his head has been turned and they know where his head's at. There comes a point where you're like, that's a lot of money.
It is.
We could do a lot with that. And that's why they were looking at Ekitike. If they brought in Ekitike for 75, then there's more money left to play with. You could almost have 2 or 3 players there and really improve the team if you get the right players in. And Eddie Howe has shown time and time again that he recruits the right players.
Yeah.
So, look, is it worth keeping a player for another year who's that unhappy? Do you maybe just allow him to go bank the money and then completely, develop the team? It's a real question you need to answer. The problem is, if you look at Newcastle right now, they're clearly trying to find a replacement. Hence why they tried Ekitike. Hence why they're looking at Sesko. They're obviously
Joe Pedro, Liam Balat.
Well, both of those. Neither of those were the replacement for Isak. Those would have been the number 2 striker.
Right. Okay.
So those would have been the replacement for Callum Wilson.
Right. Yeah.
So those guys weren't coming in and leading the line. So Pedro was like the replacement for Wilson.
Yeah.
At that stage, Isak hadn't kicked off. They knew that he wasn't that happy, but it hadn't reached this cataclysmic stage that we see now, where a player's essentially refusing to go into pre-season training. He's essentially refusing to train. Is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's not gone on strike as such, but he's saying he's got an injury, but yet he's training elsewhere with his own team, right? Which the optics of that are not good at all. So João Pedro de Lap were an accessory to Isak, but now that they know that Isak's head's been turned, Šeško, Ekitike, these guys were to come in and be the number one striker. So, I think they're saying 150. I think if they offer 130, 135, they need to listen. I think if Liverpool came in and said 100 with 25 million pounds in add-ons, I don't think Newcastle listened to that. Right? So if Liverpool are going to unsettle the player with an informal approach to Newcastle like there's been, clearly there'll be talks behind the scenes amongst intermediaries and whatnot. If Liverpool are going to unsettle the situation, they need to then come in with
a serious offer.
They do, yeah. Now, people will say, oh, why is it taking so long for them? The reason it's taking so long for Liverpool to make an offer is because they know the longer they leave it, like the closer it gets to the deadline, they feel Newcastle will have to accept because the player will agitate. But actually, I don't think they realise the strength of Newcastle's position in here, and I think the longer they leave it, the less chance they have of it happening. So that's why I think something needs to happen soon. I'm surprised they've not acted this week when Isak's away from everyone, and it's probably a cleaner break to do it. I'm surprised it's kind of going into next week when they're going to be back together. And I just think once they're back together and Eddie's back and Isak's back and the backroom staff, I just think there's an opportunity there for the situation to kind of mend itself slightly. Yeah, we'll see what the club come up with. But look, at the end of the day, he signed a 5 or 6 year contract on that money. Just because you've got really good really fast doesn't mean that you have to double your wages. I mean, if you do your job really well, you don't suddenly demand double the money.
No.
Or me.
I wish I could, but
I mean, I feel like I'm doing my job well just now, and I'm still on the same money. Like I'm not getting any pay rise. So it's ridiculous the way football works. It's absolutely ridiculous the way football works. I mean, and it's just left us in a really ugly situation. Yeah,
it has. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned some of the strikers that we've been linked to, either as Isak replacements or to back him up. We've missed out on a number of targets this summer. I think the most notable one recently was James Trafford going to Man City. Of all the targets that we've seemingly missed out on, is there one that you feel is particularly deflating for the club? Would it be Trafford, or would it be someone like Ekitike?
I think the whole Ekitike Isak situation really, really hurt because they felt they were close on Ekitike, and then they would have had the power over the Isak situation. And if they had to sell Isak, at least they've got his successor in the door already. Whereas, it will be really, really hard for the club to take if Liverpool get Isak and Ekitike. I mean, at one stage, about 2 weeks ago, I was stood there talking about Newcastle having both. I mean, that would be the most Newcastle thing ever to have one stage felt like you're going to have Isak and Ekitike, and then 2 weeks later you've got none of them. Yeah. But just another thing I want to say in Isak is, Isak could easily get injured. I mean, it's a lot of money we're talking. Isak could get injured the first game of the season, put himself out for 6 months, and then you could have had that money in and reinvested it and used it. So you're taking chances by not taking the money when the offer is there. And Newcastle said time and time again, we need to trade better, we need to sell better. Yes. Well, this is a prime opportunity for you to sell better. I know you don't have the replacement and it's not ideal, but sometimes if the money's there and the money's good and it's there, you have to take it. Now, the money isn't there yet, obviously. Which one hurt the most? I know the Ekitike one really hurt. Yeah. I know the Trafford one did because it got right to the end. I think when Newcastle came in for him to start with, Man City weren't at the table. They weren't looking to buy him. They thought it was just them. So that's why it's dragged on. And then out of nowhere, Man City have decided we're going to let Ortega go. We'll come and take Trafford back, and it's just been completely taken out of Newcastle. Yeah. So it's almost like they've found every way possible to miss out on a deal. They lost out on Brian Mbeumo because he's a Man United fan. Yeah. Lost out on Pedro because he wants to play in London. Both of them, getting more money at their respective clubs. Lost out on Trafford because of the clause he had in his contract. Lost out on Ekitike because of the Isak situation. It's just been an incredible list of players that Newcastle have missed out on. Yeah. And to me, looking at it, it shows to me that I think players now look at Newcastle, they see it still as a stepping stone. They're not top end players are not seeing Newcastle as the end destination. Yeah. They're seeing it as look, we might be in a similar position like next summer with certain players, and that's until Newcastle can be seen as a top level club, paying top level wages, going for the league every season, winning silverware in the Champions League. You're probably going to have this problem. And the club gets under the skin of certain players. It clearly has with Bruno Guimaraes. Yes. I think to an extent it has with Tonali as well. It obviously hasn't with Isak. He's obviously been able to be quite cold about it and say, look, it's my future, it's my career, this is what I want to do with it. And yes, players do have a short career. Eddie Howe's right in what he said, and that's obviously something that's been communicated to him by Isak. or his representatives. It's a short career. I'm 25. I'm going to be 26 next month, and he probably sees this real sweet spot of an opportunity to go now. Whereas in a year's time, are Liverpool going to be there? They might have signed someone else by that time. And I think he's just seen an opportunity there that Liverpool need a number 9.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity. Man United, if Man United get Sesko, they don't need a number 9. If Arsenal don't need a number 9, they've got Gyökeres.
Chelsea have just signed 2.
Chelsea have just signed 2. Man City have got Haaland. And Liverpool was probably this one opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, they have signed Ekitike, but clearly they want to bring Isak in as the number 1, and Ekitike would probably be the number 2, or maybe play off to the left-hand side.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned like the club's desire to be more. I think it was mention of Brighton early on in the project about player trading and buying low, selling high, and we've seen that we're still signing young players in that sort of 16 to 21 bracket. Park, that winger we signed who had a couple of moments in the recent friendly, and then Antonio Cordero who's gone out on loan. We seem to have this sort of model where we're going for either really young developmental players or seemingly going after sort of top-end talents with a hefty price tag. Why does it, I don't know, there might be, I'm assuming there's conversations going on in the background for these sorts of targets, but why are we not seemingly targeting that sort of middle ground where the likes of a Brentford and a Brighton would target? Because Eddie Howe's a good enough coach that he should be able to develop those sorts of players, right?
I am surprised that they're not looking for the next, like, rather than trying to sign Brian and Mbeumo, I'm surprised they're not looking for the next Brian and Mbeumo, who's going to be him in 3 years. But then you've got to remember, you're in the Champions League, so you need ready-made guys who can come in and do it. That's a question you would need to ask the recruitment staff and the manager. It's a question I probably would like to know the answer to myself. I don't know why they're not looking. You're right, they seem to be 17, 18-year-olds who are miles away from it, or the finished article. They've not really...
Because we need depth as well, right? Yeah. And we need bodies, and like if you're going to bring people in, like we clearly...
You need a squad, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, we've lost Sean Longstaff to Leeds. He would have been a useful body. Willock, I mean, it looked like his injury from the Lucian friendly wasn't as bad as it maybe seemed initially. But he's injury prone and hasn't been quite at it in the last sort of season and a bit. We've got Lewis Miley, and then that's about it in midfield. We're an injury away from having people who aren't ready in the starting midfield, and it's the same in the back line. One injury in the back line, and we've got people who aren't ready or aren't capable of playing long term. And we need those sort of value signings in the mid price range.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's nothing wrong bringing in a couple of £20 million players.
Yeah.
We're saying that as if it's like a fiver. Right, there's nothing wrong with bringing a couple of them. Maybe they're not going to start. Maybe you have to start 15 games a season. Yeah. Start them in the cup matches.
I mean, you look at how much Dan Burn was like, what, 12 and a bit million. No, I agree. Matt Target, before he had his flesh-eating disease, had about 16 million. It was about 16 million.
I agree with you. Get a couple. I'm surprised. I mean, look, the starting price of an average player these days has a 3 at the front of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is hard. But there are players available. Like, look at what like other teams are doing. For example, I mean, look. I'm not trying to like rub salt in the wounds, but look at like Xhaka, for example, right?
Got to Sunderland.
Yeah, look, he's got to Sunderland because of the project, and obviously the owner's Swiss, and he's really. But like someone like him, I know he's 32. But like, I don't mean him, but someone like him, they've got him for, I think, 13 million plus add-ons.
Or João Palhinha going to Spurs on loan with an option for 28 million when he was really good at Fulham.
Yeah, you don't have to start every game, but you need some players who can come in and start 15, 20 games a season, which if you get Yan Vissa, I think will be the situation. Yeah. But also you need players who are going to be happy doing that, right? And I think Vissa will be happy. You need team players who are okay with that. And look, that's a question I don't know the answer to, and it's one I'll be endeavouring to ask once I get the opportunity, because it does, you're right, it feels like there's a massive chasm between the top players are going for and the young players. Yeah,
I mean, we mentioned like some of the young signings. Has there been anything you've heard or an impression you've had about any of the recent academy signings or young players that we've brought in who maybe will have a bigger role than we might expect this coming season? I mean, I think everyone loves Will Asula, but he's clearly just not ready or not
but he's also not an academy player. What's he, 22?
He's 21, I think. I and I know I suppose he was technically a late starter, but he's 21.
I think I would let him go out on loan, but obviously you can't do it at the moment because you've not got any other forwards. But if you were to get a couple in, as the plan is, I think ideally if you got Sesko and Wissa in, I think they'd probably allow him to go out on loan.
Yeah.
But you can't at the moment. He's essentially leading the line. I can't
Yeah.
believe it's come to this. Which is one of the reasons why Eddie gets a lot of criticism about holding on to Callum Wilson, but you can see why he's done it now. How hard is it to get a striker in?
Yeah.
It seems really, really difficult.
I mean, they are probably the rarest thing in football,
well,
a decent striker.
It's getting even more rare. I mean, to see what Isak's worth now is just incredible compared to, what he was when he came in. I mean, it's more than double. I mean, look, there's a couple of youngsters there, that have been in and around the first team, like the boys Sanusi.
There's like Sean Neve's been there. Yeah, Travis Hearns was out on loan in Denmark last year.
I mean, look, I think we would have seen a bit more of them pre-season if they were going to play. I think they're probably still a bit off of playing top-level Premier League games, the physicality of it, and Champions League as well. Yeah. Clearly, if they were, you would know about. We knew about Lewis Miley early, and we don't know about these guys yet. So, I mean, in fact, I was up at the Celtic game the other week there, and I think Neve only got the last couple of minutes.
Yeah,
Osula came off. I think I don't know. Did you have a midfielder playing up front? I can't remember. It was something ridiculous. So, look, I wouldn't worry too much about the youngsters. I think you just need to get some experience. You need to get
some actual full-grown bodies in the.
But you have to remember in all this, Alexander Isak is still a Newcastle player, right? And if you don't get Sesko or you don't get whoever else are looking at, Ollie Watkins, whatever, I just think the club will dig their heels in and say, look, you need to knuckle down and play. Whether they give him a pay rise or they change his contract, not change it, but they give him some gentleman's agreement for next summer, whatever. They need to get his head in the right space to go again for the season. It'll be really interesting to see where his head's at. I would still say at the moment it's 50-50 as to whether he stays or goes. I can't call it at all.
Yeah.
The longer it goes on, though, the more I think he's probably going to stay.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I mean, if we can't bring in some kind of decent quality replacement like a Sesko, I wouldn't think he would go. I think that, I mean, especially with the rumours that Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the chairman, is sort of taking more control of the operations until the end of the summer. I don't know how true that is. We all know that Isak was the guy that he pinpointed and said, go get him. And then he's also reportedly said that previously he's not for sale. So I think if he's got more control of the day-to-day operations at the moment, I think selling the crown jewel is less and less likely. I would agree. I mean, we mentioned Yan Vissa a couple of times. We've seen the reports recently about him still refusing to train at Brentford and telling head coach Keith Andrews that he wants to leave. I think we seem to be the only ones who've been consistently linked to him. I don't know if there's anyone else. Do you feel like that one is going to get done, even if it is late on in the window?
Well, Nottingham Forest came in for him in January, and then again this summer with another bid. Both have been turned down. And Spurs, there was interest from Spurs, and then they signed Mohamed Kudus, and I think that interest has kind of been shelved a little bit. As far as I'm speaking to people involved in the deal, as far as I'm told, Wissa wants to come in Newcastle. He doesn't want to miss this opportunity. He wants to play Champions League football, and he'll be 29 next month, and he knows if he doesn't get this opportunity now,
probably his last big chance.
Yeah. He wants the move to happen. I'm just looking over the camera's shoulder there, and I was watching pictures of him turning up to training yesterday. He turned up to training but didn't train. Had a meeting with Keith Andrews, left before the rest of the players, made it clear he wants to leave. I don't know how this is going to play out because he's angry. He's angry that he's not getting on.
They reportedly had a gentleman's agreement for about 28 million. The speculation.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I think he was of the understanding that he'd be allowed to go.
Yeah.
The problem was, Mbeumo went first, and then Brentford said we're not allowing both to go. Newcastle probably should have got in there a little bit earlier with him if they really wanted him before the Mbeumo deal went through, and then that would have put Brentford would probably be doing to Mbeumo now what they're doing to Wissa and trying to block it. I don't know how that's going to play out because it's kind of similar to the Isak situation, albeit he seems even more angry than what Isak is. Like, it's a very similar situation, and it's just what we see in modern football, players digging their heels in. And,
there's a lot of player power.
Yeah, there is massively. I still think the Vissa one will happen off the back of his meeting yesterday. But again, he's not the replacement for Isak.
No, he's the Wilson replacement.
He's the Wilson replacement. Somebody can come in and start 15 games a season. So even if you do get him in, you still need a Sesko or a Watkins or a holding on to Isak. So, like, you're spinning plates at the moment, really spinning plates. I mean, we see that with the goalkeeper situation. Newcastle wanted Ramsdale last summer, couldn't afford him due to PSR, but then have moved on this summer to Trafford, thought they had him, and then the Trafford thing falls through, and they go, right, we'll have to go back to... And it's almost like the target list has been changed all the time. Like, if you look at the target list now compared to what it was at the start of this summer, there's probably not one name that's still remaining. You know,
I mean, I think was it Craig Hope recently mentioned that there's almost like a feeling of us quote unquote winging it, sort of maybe to paraphrase him a little bit.
Though, a lot of clubs do that. Like, it's not. Yeah, they are probably winging it now, but a lot of clubs do that. The
market changes quickly.
Yeah, and there were so few players available this summer that were available, and everyone seemed to want the same players. I remember speaking to Eddie Howe when the season was still ongoing. It must have been at the end of April, and I said, "Look, it's difficult this because some of that, like, you could hear that Dean Howson, who Newcastle really liked, thought they had a chance with, had chosen Real Madrid, and that's why he says we need to get to work quickly." He made it clear, didn't he? He said we really need to get to work quickly here. And that's not happened. The reason he was saying that is it was such a small pool of players, and it felt like everyone wanted Mbumo, everyone wanted Dalanga, everyone wanted Howson, everyone wanted Cunha, everyone wanted Delap.
And all the big clubs are splashing the cash this summer.
I think when you look at the clubs Newcastle have lost out to, right, if you actually go through the list of players, Trafford, Man City, Cunha and Mbumo, Man United, Pedro and Delap, Chelsea. Howson, Real Madrid,
Ekitike to Liverpool,
potentially Isak to Liverpool. When you look at, you're not losing out to Villa.
No, we're losing out to the sort of top
established
6 to 10 to clubs in the world.
Yeah, that's what you're losing, and that's what you're trying to become.
Yeah.
But sadly, you've not become that yet, and that's clearly that has been shown. This window has been indicative of the situation.
I mean, speaking of. Well, if we're switching from transfers on signings off the pitch, on the pitch, signings off the pitch, there's obviously been the whole saga with Paul Mitchell coming in, clashing with Eddie Howe, and then leaving. We've had the ongoing fiasco with trying to find Darren Eales' replacement. There's been reports that it's David Hopkinson, the ex financial guy at Real Madrid, and Ross Wilson coming in from Forest as the new director of football. What's your impression of the off the field situation? Like, why is it taking us? I mean, we knew that Eales was leaving last September. That was when it was announced that he was going to be out there for a transitionary period. Why has it taken this long to even just get reports that we're close to an appointment, not even having someone in yet? Yeah,
it just feels like there's a massive vacuum at the club at the moment, and it feels like for things to get to the PIF and make a decision, it takes them. It's almost just gets held up. Look, I think the club have alluded, certain individuals have alluded to this before, at how long things take. I think with the PIF is they've got so many other things they're juggling. Like, they've got so many spinning plates, they've got the golf, they've got the boxing, they've got all their other like political stuff. And sadly, the Newcastle fans probably don't want to hear this, but
we're not the biggest thing they own.
And it's been like that for a while, and it has been like. I think when you had Amanda Merdad there, they were able to directly go there and kind of like extract stuff and focus their minds and stuff. But without those individuals there, that struggled. Obviously, Darren's got his illness. That's probably not helped the situation because he's quite rightly had his own personal battle on his hands. But look, there's a massive vacuum. There's a disconnect there that needs to be reconnected, and I think it's all come to fruition. You've seen it all. It's all been just there in the cold light of day this summer. We've been able to see what's happened. I mean, there's no way Eddie Howe, the head coach, should be doing having to negotiate with football clubs. And Andy Howe, who was brought in scouting department and really good at his job, by the way, he's having to negotiate. It's ridiculous. And the timing of Paul Mitchell going was terrible. Eddie said at his press conference after the Celtic game the other week, he said. Basically said that I found out about my phone blew up. The timing's been horrendous. They should have foreseen this and got people in, and I actually think it's been a bit of neglect from the PIF to have allowed it to get to this stage and think that the club can just. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Ashley days when people would leave and they wouldn't get a replacement, and jobs would just be left to others. And you can't do that in modern football. All the other clubs are run too well to do that, and it's cost Newcastle. And I think this summer it's set Newcastle back a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that's been a sentiment a lot of people have held, is the idea that this sort of, we hear a lot about the considered approach that PIF have. They're very process driven. But it's like when you have multiple layers of people making decisions and it takes ages to do things in an arena in elite sport where you have to be quick, you have to be decisive. And it's like they clash and doesn't make a lot of sense. I think the hope is that someone like a Hopkinson and Ross Wilson would maybe hopefully PIF maybe learn with Yasser Al-Rumayyan in town at the moment. Maybe they learn some lessons, and he's maybe given the new executives coming in are given more autonomy.
You need a strong character there. You need people who come in and are able to contact the PIF and say that's what you need. You need strong character, people that the PIF will listen to as well. I don't know much about Hopkinson at all. I know Ross Wilson, really good guy, like team player. I think he'll fit in well. You just need a real strong connection there between them, and that connection has become really frayed over the last year or two. The Paul Mitchell the Paul Mitchell appointment. Paul Mitchell appointment, without doubt, has been it's not worked out at all. It's been a bit of a mess for the club. He didn't get on with Eddie. They didn't see eye to eye from the start. Something had to go. Eddie can walk on water for everything he's done. It was always going to be Mitchell that went. The timing of it was poor. They should have made that decision earlier or waited until after the summer. To do that right at the start of the summer transfer window, the timing was terrible. And you can tell that Eddie was frustrated by that. But I mean, he was brought in without Eddie say so. Eddie didn't know about it. It was just landed on him, and he's come in like a bit of a bull in a china shop, and he's should have dealt with the situation. It's been a disaster, to be honest, and it without doubt has set things back. And I do feel for Eddie, because he's been like stuck in the middle of this, having to do 10 jobs. Remember, he was only in hospital a couple of months ago with an illness himself, and he must be stressed out at having to deal with all this. 4 weeks before the season starts, and he's still looking for 4 players. When he said he wanted all the business done early, it's incredible. He'll be knackered before the season. I'm knackered before the season starts.
He'll have pneumonia again before we have the first game of the season. I mean, on such a wonderfully positive note, I think we'll have to end there, Keith. I mean, thank you for joining us. It's been an enlightening conversation, albeit not the one to cheer us up before the weekend.
Hopefully, we're back in here in a few weeks' time on a match day. Everyone's got a smile on their face, beer in their hand, looking forward to the first. It's away from home, first game against Liverpool, and Alexander Isak in the Newcastle shirt firing the winner in against Liverpool. That's what we want. In here after the game, being back in here reminds you that football season's just round the corner. So
having the stadium right behind us and everything as well.
Let's not be totally negative. We've got an amazing season to look forward to. Still got a good squad of players.
A great coach.
A brilliant coach, and you've got Champions League football to come.
Yes. Right. Well, on a slightly more positive note, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Keith for joining us. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe if you like the episode, like the content. See you later.